When Caleb Warren first laid eyes on the Briarstone Ranch, it wasn't a home, it was a skeleton of a past someone had abandoned long before him. Wind scraped broken boards against the dusty ground, and the once great barn leaned like an old man ready to collapse. But Caleb, fresh out of a long and brutal cattle war, wasn't looking for beauty. He was looking for silence, a place where the ghosts inside him could finally stop screaming. And for just $30 and a handshake in a smoky saloon, Briarstone Ranch became his. He rode out there the next morning with nothing but a mule, a crate of tools, and a will to rebuild what everyone else swore was cursed. The ranch sat miles away from the nearest trail, just desert, silence and sun-scorched emptiness. But in that emptiness, Caleb felt a strange sort of peace. He spent his days patching walls, mending fences, and clearing dust so thick it coated his lungs. Days stretched into weeks, and though the nights were eerily quiet, too quiet, he ignored the shiver that ran up his spine each time he felt like someone was watching him from the edge of the darkened fields. Then one afternoon, while fixing a corral beam, he noticed something odd, faint footprints, small ones near the back of the ranch house. Too small for a man, too fresh to be old. He followed them, but they vanished at the tree line like dust carried off by the wind. That night he barely slept, the moonlight creeping through the broken shutters like thin silver knives. The next morning he rode into Red Hollow to buy lumber and stayed for a few drinks, longer than he intended. He told himself he needed supplies, needed rest, needed anything, except the strange stillness that had begun to wrap around the ranch like a noose. Red Hollow was loud, lively, and full of stories. But one story was whispered more than the rest. The legend of the Briarstone sisters. 4 women, innocent they said, taken by a mob when the sheriff was out of town, accused of witchcraft, cattle theft, poisoning, or whatever else drunken fear could conjure. They were never found, but everyone agreed the ranch had been cursed ever since. Caleb laughed it off, but something about the story crawled under his skin. He stayed in town longer than he intended, convincing himself he needed one more piece of equipment, one more drink, one more night under a roof that didn't creak like it was alive. By the time he rode back, 3 weeks had passed. The desert wind howled like a warning as he approached the ranch. Something felt wrong in a way the human body instinctively recognizes. The door to the house stood open, swinging slowly back and forth, though he was sure he had shut it tight before leaving. His horse refused to step any closer, stamping the ground anxiously. Caleb dismounted, rifle in hand, and walked forward slowly, each crunch of sand under his boots echoing like a drumbeat of dread. The porch creaked under his weight, and then he saw them. 4 shapes hanging inside the house, still, silent, suspended from the ceiling beam. 4 women, 4 dresses swaying with the faintest whisper of wind, as though the house itself was breathing. His blood turned to ice. The sight didn't feel real, couldn't be real. Their faces were shadowed, hair gently lifted by the draft, ropes drawn tight. Caleb felt his knees weaken. He stumbled backward, mouth dry, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. They looked almost placed, deliberate, as if someone had been waiting for him to return. His hands shook so violently the rifle nearly slipped from his grip. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. For a moment he wondered if the townsfolk had followed him, if someone had played a sick joke. But then he noticed something even more unsettling. The footprints around the porch were the same ones he had seen weeks earlier. Small, delicate, exactly 4 pairs. Exactly 4 women. Caleb forced himself to step inside. The boards groaned beneath his boots, the suspended bodies swaying slightly as if acknowledging his presence. The air was cold, not the natural cold of night, but something deeper, unnatural. And then he realized something horrifying. Their skin wasn't decayed. Their clothes weren't old. Their bodies looked untouched by death or time, as if they'd been hanged moments ago. Caleb stumbled back, heart hammering so fiercely he could barely hear his own thoughts. And then he heard it, one soft exhale, like a whisper brushing past his ear. He spun around, but the house was empty except for the 4 women hanging silently, watching him with eyes that hadn't opened in decades. Or so the legend said. Caleb didn't believe in curses. He didn't believe in spirits, but standing there, heart trembling, he began to understand something he never wanted to accept. Briarstone Ranch had been waiting for its owner to return, and now it wanted something from him. Caleb staggered outside, gasping for air, letting the harsh desert wind slap his face until his vision steadied. He had two choices: run back to Red Hollow and abandon the ranch forever, or walk back into that house and face whatever impossible nightmare waited there. But Caleb Warren wasn't a man who ran. He had survived war, cattle raiders, and every manner of outlaw. He wouldn't let fear break him now. So he forced himself back through the doorway. The four bodies hung silently, unmoving, though he could have sworn they had shifted positions slightly. He circled them slowly, forcing his breath to steady, looking for any sign of life or trickery. But there were no bruises, no stiffness, no sign of the death that should have claimed them long ago. The rope marks around their necks were faint, as if time refused to touch them. Caleb whispered, "What happened to you?" The house responded with a dull groan, dust falling from the rafters like falling snow. And then, the faintest flicker, a candle flame from the corner, though he could swear he hadn't lit any candles before leaving. He followed it cautiously. The flame crackled, illuminating faint letters carved into the wooden table, nearly hidden by dust. "We were innocent." Caleb felt a chill crawl up his spine. He turned sharply toward the hanging women. One of their heads, just one, seemed tilted now, as though acknowledging the words. Determined, he lowered each body gently, laying them side by side on the floor. They felt warm like living flesh. His throat tightened. "This isn't possible," he whispered. He removed the ropes one by one. Their fingers twitched, not violently, but the slightest movement, delicate as a breath of wind. Caleb stumbled back. Then a sound rose behind him, a low, distant rumble. Hoofbeats. Someone was approaching the ranch fast. He rushed outside just in time to see 6 horseback riders cutting across the desert, armed, grim-faced, riding with purpose. Caleb recognized the leading man, Sheriff Colton Maddox, a man known for solving his problems with bullets rather than justice. Maddox dismounted with a grim smile. "You aren't supposed to come back." "Warren?" Caleb's grip tightened on his rifle. "What happened here?" Maddox's smile faded. "Something you should have let die with the past." The riders spread out, guns drawn. Maddox stepped forward. "Those women, they belonged to a group we didn't want in these parts. They were healers, nothing more. But people feared what they didn't understand." Caleb's jaw clenched. "So you killed them?" Maddox shrugged. "People wanted justice. I delivered it." "Justice?" Caleb hissed. "They were innocent." The sheriff's eyes went cold. "This ranch should have stayed buried, and so should you." Caleb fired first. Chaos erupted. Gunshots thundered through the air, dust exploding around him. Caleb dropped behind the water trough, bullets splintering wood inches from his head. One rider fell, another ducked behind a fence. Caleb ran for the porch, returning fire, heart pounding like a war drum. He had no choice. He fought like a man with nothing left to lose. When the smoke cleared, only 2 men were left standing, Caleb and Maddox. The sheriff aimed his revolver, but before he could fire, the wind howled through the ranch with a chilling force. The porch boards creaked. The doorway darkened. The 4 women stepped out, alive, silent, eyes glowing faintly with something ancient and unreadable. Maddox froze, terror draining the color from his face. "No. No, you can't." The women moved with eerie grace, surrounding him without a word. The air grew colder, heavier. Maddox stumbled backward. "Stay away from me!" The wind roared. The ropes, those same ropes, Caleb had removed, slithered across the ground like living serpents. Caleb watched in stunned silence as they wrapped around Maddox's arms, his legs, his neck. The sheriff's scream echoed once, then the wind carried it away. And just as quickly as it began, it was over. The ropes fell still. The 4 women stood silently before Caleb, alive, free, yet bound to something deeper than the living world. The oldest among them stepped forward. Her voice was soft, like desert wind at dusk. "You set us free, and for that, this place is yours." Caleb swallowed hard. "What are you now?" "Justice," she whispered. Then, with the rising sun casting long shadows across the barren land, the 4 women walked into the desert, their figures fading with each step until they were swallowed by the dunes. Caleb stood there alone, the ranch quiet once more. But it no longer felt cursed. It felt protected, and from that day on, no outlaw, no sheriff, no wandering drifter dared approach Briarstone Ranch again. Caleb rebuilt it, piece by piece, whispering thanks to the wind each night, because some debts cannot be repaid, only honored. And some stories in the Wild West don't end in death, they begin with it.